Hello, everyone. This is the third class for social psychological perspectives on health. In the last class, I explained about the beginning of chapter 2, and then in the video, I talked about the basics of social identity. What is social identity and the definition of social identity? And also, I talked about how social identity navigates our behavior, like how we should behave or how we should decide who are more trustworthy people. And at the end of the last lecture, I talked about uh, how we need to understand what social identity theory and self-categorization theory in order to understand about how social identity is related to health. So, in today's lecture, that's what I am going to do. The social identity theory was originally developed to explain the psychology of intergroup relations. Intergroup relations refer to the relation between nations or racial groups or ethnic groups. So basically, social identity theory is used to explain why people hate each other, and then why people fight even each other, like a war or ethnic conflict. Okay, so the theory postulates that individuals try to understand the meaning and standing or the status of the group through comparison with relevant groups. So if you want to understand what is the meaning of being a Hitotsubashi student, then you may try to compare Hitotsubashi student with other students and try to understand where Hitotsubashi students stand in relation to other university students. And then two, individuals are motivated to define their own group favorably by differentiating it positively from those art groups. And the theory explains that this is because people are assumed to be motivated to enhance positive identity. So basically, we are intrinsically motivated to have a positive identity. Basically, we are intrinsically want to we intrinsically want to see ourselves positively, you know. And because of such tendency or innate trait, people also want to define their own group favorably. And the way they define their group favorably is to differentiate their group from other groups in positive ways. So if you want to see yourself positively, then you may look for positive traits of Hitotsubashi students, or you may look for positive traits of whatever groups you belong to. And then I think it's interesting to note that the theory does not argue that individuals are motivated to see out groups negatively for the sake of seeing one's group positively. But in other words, people are not intrinsically motivated to see out group negatively. Rather, people are intrinsically motivated to see themselves positively. And because of such tendency, people come to compare their group with other group. And then in order to see their group more positively, they try to find elements that makes them see their group positively compared to other groups. Okay, so that's kind of nuanced explanation, but people are not motivated to see others negatively. But because people are motivated to see themselves positively, they look for factors and elements and aspects that enable them to see their group positively. And in that process, people come to see as a group more negatively uh, relative to their own group. Okay. So if you define yourself as a Hitotsubashi student, you may compare Hitotsubashi student with other university students, and then you are more likely to focus on aspects that Hitotsubashi students look better. And then maybe some people come to say that there are some bad parts, bad aspects that Hitotsubashi University Hitotsubashi students have. But if other people say that, you are more likely to say, well, maybe, but it's not really important or central to our identity. And so that you can minimize the impact of negative aspects of Hitotsubashi student on your own identity. Okay. So, and this positive identity is related to better well-being. By belonging to a positive group and the motivated process to see one's group positive, people gain positive identity. So there are many ways to gain positive identity. For example, if you succeed in like if you accomplish something as an individual, you can gain your individual or personal positive identity. But the way to gain positive identity is not only through personal accomplishment, but if you simply belong to a positive group or higher status group, then you can gain a positive identity through the membership of that group. And positive identity gained through such group membership leads to high collective self-esteem. Self-esteem derived from one's social identity. And there like personal self-esteem and the collective self-esteem. Basically, self-esteem is the feeling or sense that you experience about yourself, and then the extent that you value yourself, or the extent you feel worthy about yourself, or more simply, the degree that you feel good about yourself. This is self-esteem. And then not only you feel good about yourself, but you also feel good about your group. And the extent that you feel good about yourself is collective self-esteem. And the more you feel, the higher you have collective self-esteem, such high collective self-esteem can be transferred to your personal self-esteem. And because of that, the higher you have collective self-esteem, you're more likely to have higher personal self-esteem. And this high self-esteem is related to more life satisfaction. This is kind of obvious because the more you feel good about yourself, the more you are likely to be satisfied with your life, right? And then also you are more like to have less psychological distress. The more you feel good about yourself, the less you are likely to experience psychological distress. There are fewer things that you are worried about when you feel good about yourself. And this more life satisfaction and less psychological distress will enhance your well-being. And the capacity for social identity to function as a beneficial psychological resources can be enhanced or reduced by the state and circumstances of the group associated with the identity. So here is the hypothesis 3, the group circumstance hypothesis. When and to the extent that a person defines themselves in terms of a given social identity, their well-being will be affected by the state and circumstances of the group with which that identity is associated. So there are some aspects in this hypothesis. First, uh, the impact of the state or circumstances of group is moderated by the extent that you define yourself as a member of the group. Okay, and I think this was explained in as a hypothesis two. A person will generally experience the health-related benefits or costs, or like any general benefits or costs of a given group membership only to the extent they identify with that group. So the more you identify, or the more strongly you feel that you are a member of a group, you're more likely to be affected by that group. Okay. And then also, the group state is not static. It could be high or low at any uh, given moment. So let's think about the Olympics game again. When a team of your nation win the gold medal in Olympic Games, it means that the state of your group is high now. And the more you identify with your nation, or the more you identify with a national team, you are more likely to feel good about yourself. But when your national team loses in the Olympic game, and then the more you identify with a group, with your nation, or with the athletic team, then you are more likely to experience negative emotions, and then you are more likely to affect it negatively by this event. Okay, this is basically what the hypothesis three tells. And then I think there are examples explained in the textbook, like the research done by Branscombe and one, and also one and Branscombe. By the way, you might see these two people uh, identical, and then you might wonder why uh, in one of the research done in 1993, Branscombe comes first, while in the research done in 1990, one comes the first. And this is because the order of the researchers, or the authors of the research, is the order of the amount of contribution they made. So in the research done in 1994, Branscombe made more contribution to the research than one, while one made more contribution than Branscombe in the research done in 1990. So through seeing the order, you can tell that which person was uh, more responsible for the outcome of this research. And then I think this is generally true for many disciplines, but in some more like natural science field, they tend to have the names of authors simply in alphabetical orders. So uh, what the order means really depends on which field the journal or the paper is published. Okay. So back to the topic, and there's another research done by Aesir and Doe. Sorry, I don't have much knowledge of how to pronounce French name, and also I'm not sure how you pronounce this, the first author. But basically, what they did was they looked at the well-being of Hispanic students entering university in the States. And what they found was that well-being of Hispanic students fell once they entered the university in the state. And this is because uh, Hispanic group is considered to dominate a lower status in the state in the United States. And because of that, when Hispanic students entered a university in the United States, and then when they have to compare themselves with American students, they have to uh, admit that their standing is not so high compared to other students. Well, they may not necessarily admit, but they feel, you know, that, well, they are not uh, treated as respectful as other American students are treated. And but the story is a bit complex, and I will explain more in detail in chapter 3. But highly identified individuals engage in more cultural activities and restore positive identity. So I said that in hypothesis 3, the more you identify with a group, well, in hypothesis 2, the more you identify with the group, you are more likely to be affected by the standing of the group. But people can deal with the situation differently. And in this study, they found that those who strongly identify with their Hispanic identity engage in more cultural activities, and through doing that, they restored their positive identity, and then they restore their well-being as well. So as I said, because positive identity is so important, or the positivity of their group is so important, positivity of their identity is so important. When the when negative events come out, people try to restore their positive identity when it is possible. So when the positivity of the group identity is compromised, people are motivated to restore it because they always seek positive identity. Okay, so here's the hypothesis 4, the identity restoration hypothesis. People will be motivated to restore positive identity when this is compromised by events that threaten or undermine their social identities. For example, group failure, a loss in Olympic Games, for example, or stigma, low status, like Hispanic students in the United States, in a university in the United States, or loss of group membership. And there are two sets of factors how people deal with negative event. The first one is a perceived permeability of group boundaries. Permeability really means whether you can join or leave the group. Okay. So whether personal mobility is possible. This is what I just explained, whether people can leave or join a group. And then social identification is negatively related to permeability. This means that uh, oh, 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 okay. Mm, mm, Sorry about that. Okay, it's not really working well, so I will just explain by my words. Um, okay, sorry about that. So, when people have high social identification with a group, they tend to see it difficult to leave the group. That means social identity, high social identification comes with low perceived permeability. But when they only weakly identify with a group, they tend to feel that it's so easy to leave that group because the group membership is not really important for them. So that means that low social identification comes with a high permeability. Okay? And status feeds into social identification. So as I said, when people want to have a positive identity, and the positivity of the group identity can be defined by the status of the group. So high status gives you more positive identity. And then because of that, when people belong to high status group, they tend to strongly identify with that group. So status of the group, high status of the group gives you high social identification, and then high social identification is related to low perceived permeability. And then permeability is positively related to the likelihood of leaving the group, meaning that when people perceive that, oh, it's so easy to leave the group, then they're more likely to leave the group. It's simple. But when people value the group, and then when people, because of that, when people see that it's so difficult to leave the group, then they are unlikely to leave the group. Okay. So here the hypothesis 5, the mobility hypothesis. When circumstances threaten, undermine, or preclude positive social identity, if people perceive group boundaries to be permeable, meaning that if they think that it's easy to leave the group, they're likely to respond to the threat to positive identity through strategies of personal mobility. So this means that when the positive identity is compromised, they are not really trying to restore their group identity, but in order to restore their own personal identity, they decide to leave the group. Okay. And another what was it, factor that influence the restoration is the position, whether the position of the in-group is secure, meaning stable and legitimate. And when the position of the in-group is insecure, meaning that they cannot really change the uh, position of the in-group, and the position that they currently have is legitimate, then they go for a creativity strategy. So the creativity hypothesis uh, postulates that when circumstances threaten, undermine, or preclude positive social identity, if people perceive group boundaries to be impermeable, but group relations to be secure, they're likely to respond to the threat to positive identity through strategies of social creativity. So in the textbook, it gives an example of dwarf dwarfinism, basically a disease that makes people short. Okay, and then because when such disease is seen intreatable, well, very difficult to treat, then people perceive the group permeability as very low. Okay, it's so difficult to change their group identity. Then they try to be creative in a way that they try to find good aspect of their group. For example, like maybe you can think about black people in the history, or maybe even in today, uh, when they are negatively discriminated, they may try to focus on good or superior aspect of themselves, like athletic talent they have, or music talent they have, or like upbeat personality they have. By looking at positive aspect of their group identity, they try to restore their social identity. And another strategy they go for is social competition. And in with this strategy, they try to produce social change. So this strategy is taken when the position of in group is seen insecure. So meaning that when they think that their position can be improved, they try to take a strategy of social competition. And I think an example is a Black Lives Matter movement. So the hypothesis tells that when circumstances threaten, undermine, or preclude positive social identity, if people perceive group boundaries to be impermeable and group relations to be insecure, they are likely to respond to the threat to positive identity through strategies of social competition. So, to just recap what I have just said, when the permeability is low, they will just lead their group to to restore their personal positive identity. Or maybe they try to focus on other social identities. But when the permeability is low, meaning that you can really leave the group or change your social identity, then you look at whether the position can be changed or not. And when the position is secure, meaning that you cannot really change, then you use creativity strategy, meaning that you try to look for good aspect of yourself or your group. And when the position is insecure, then you go for social competition. You basically make a movement to try so that they can change, so that you can change the uh, current situations or the standing of your group. By doing that, you try to restore the positivity of your social identity. Okay, so I think I will just stop here and then I will continue the rest of content in the next video.